You're wasting the most powerful moment of your life every night. Every night you have a portal that most people never discover, never understand. And while you sleep, completely ignoring this extraordinary power, other people are there in that sacred minute before you fall asleep, reprogramming your destinies, building mental empires, creating futures you can only dream of. While you simply close your eyes and let your mind wander, they are taking absolute control of that moment. And that's exactly why their lives are different from yours. That's exactly why some prosper while others remain trapped in mediocrity. Think about it for a second. Do you know that moment? That specific instant when you lie in bed, turn off the light, and when your thoughts start to slow down, become deeper, more meaningful. When the reality of the day begins to fade and you enter a different state of consciousness, that moment is not accidental. That moment is not insignificant. That moment is literally the key that unlocks the door to your future. And most people never realize it, probably never have, until now. Napoleon Hill, one of the greatest scholars of success who ever lived, a man who dedicated more than 20 years of his life to studying the secrets of the world's most successful people, discovered something that changed everything. He wasn't looking for it. He was investigating other things, trying to understand how people achieved extraordinary wealth, how they overcame impossible obstacles, how they transformed their lives so radically that it seemed like a miracle. But the more he investigated, the more he interviewed entrepreneurs, inventors, the more he delved into the details of their lives, something began to emerge, something consistent, something that nobody was talking about, something they all did, but that nobody recognized as important. And this thing was so simple, so obvious, so accessible, that Hill almost missed it. He almost didn't notice it. But when he finally understood what he was seeing, when he put all the pieces of the puzzle together, he realized he had discovered something truly extraordinary, something that could transform anyone's life, something so powerful that Hill dedicated the rest of his life trying to share this knowledge with. He wrote about it. He spoke about it. He warned about it because he knew it was real. He knew it worked. And he knew that most people would never discover it on their own. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. Hill wasn't talking about sleeping well. He wasn't recommending relaxation techniques, comfortable positions in bed. He wasn't concerned with the quality of your rest or how many hours you slept. No, he was talking about something much deeper, much more transformative, much more real. He was talking about how that minute before sleep, that specific moment when you are between wakefulness and rest, is literally the portal between your present and your future. It is in that minute that real decisions are made. Not during the day when you're busy, stressed, distracted, surrounded by other people, bombarded with information, trapped in automatic routines. No, it is at night, in that sacred silence, when the world finally quiets down, that your subconscious mind really works. It is at that moment that you have access to a power that most people never discover. Think about the implications of this. You spend your entire day living your life, working, relating, fighting, trying, doing things, making decisions. But all of this is happening on a conscious level. Your conscious brain is in control. Your ego is in. Your limitations, your fears, your doubts are all there, filtering everything you do. But when you sleep, when that minute arrives, something changes, something transforms. The barrier between the conscious and the unconscious becomes thin, almost transparent. And it is at that moment that you gain access to a part of yourself that is far more powerful than you will realize. That in that minute before sleep, you are no longer under the control of your ego. You are no longer bound by your conscious limitation. You are no longer blocked by the beliefs you have built about yourself over the years. That moment, you are in a different state. A state where everything is possible. A state where you can rewrite the rules. A state where you can plant seeds that will grow while you sleep and harvest extraordinary fruits when you wake up. But here's the problem. Here's why most people never experience this power. Most people are doing the exact opposite. You're probably doing it too. You lie in bed, turn off the light, and let your mind wander. You let your thoughts go anywhere. You think about the work you didn't. You think about the problems you didn't solve. You think about the people who hurt you. Think about everything that could go wrong. You think about failure. You think about limitation. You think about impossibility. And while you're in that vulnerable state, in that state where your conscious is completely open, you're planting the worst possible seed. You're programming your own failure. You're creating your own suffering. It's like spending the whole day building a beautiful house, placing each brick in the right place, planning every detail, working hard, sweating, striving. And then, when night comes and finally rest, set that house on fire, completely destroy it. And the next day you wake up and start all over again. Build another house, you work hard. And at night, you set it on fire again, day after day, night after night, destroying everything you built. This is what most people are doing. This is what you're probably doing, and you don't even know it. You don't realize. You're completely unaware of it. You think you're just sleeping, you're resting. But in reality, you're You're actively sabotaging. You're creating barriers that you yourself will have to. You're planting seeds of failure that you yourself will have. Napoleon Hill saw this happen countless times. He saw people with extraordinary potential wasting their lives because they didn't understand this principle. He saw people with incredible opportunities failing because they didn't control that minute before sleep. He saw intelligent, talented, dedicated people getting stuck in mediocrity because they were doing the exact opposite of what they should have been doing in that sacred moment. But he also saw the opposite. He saw people who started from nothing, who had no apparent advantages, no powerful connections, no impressive formal education, no inheritance, nothing but one piece of knowledge, the knowledge of how to use that minute before sleep. And these people transformed their lives so radically, so completely, so extraordinarily that it seemed impossible. It seemed like a miracle. But it wasn't a miracle science. It was a principle. It was a method. It was something anyone could learn and apply. And that's exactly what you're discovering. You're about to understand how that works. You're about to learn the secret Hill discovered by studying over 500 millionaires. You're about to receive the key that unlocks the door to your extraordinary future. But before that, you need to understand something very important. You need to understand that this knowledge is not new. It's not a recent discovery. Hill discovered it over 100 years ago. And before that, other people are ancient sages, philosophers, spiritual leaders. They all understood this principle. They all knew about the power of that minute before sleep. But somehow, this knowledge was forgotten. It was lost. It was buried under layers of modernity, of haste, distraction. And now, at this moment, you're about to recover it. You're about to unearth it. You're about to bring this power back into you. So get ready. Because what you're about to learn will change everything. It will change the way you sleep. It will change the way you think. It will change the way you live. And most importantly, it will change your future. Because you will finally understand that that minute before is not, and it's the most important moment. It's the moment that decides everything. It's the moment that separates those who prosper from those who fail. And from now on, you will never waste that minute. You will never leave it to chance again. You will never again allow your subconscious to be programmed with the worst possible belief. You will take control. You will be deliberate. You will be conscious. And you will begin to build the extraordinary future you truly deserve. First, you need to understand exactly how this works. You need to know the detail. You need to know what Hill discovered when he studied those 500 millionaires. Because when you truly understand, everything will make sense. And you will finally have the answer to the question you've always asked yourself. Why do some people succeed and others don't? Napoleon Hill didn't begin his journey searching for millionaires. He began searching for answers. He was a young journalist, curious, questioning, dissatisfied with the superficial answers the world offered. He wanted to know the truth, the real truth, not the one people pretend to believe, but the truth that actually worked. And it was in this search that he met Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in the world. Carnegie challenged him. He said that if Hill could study the most successful men in America, he could discover the pattern behind their extraordinary success. He would have the answer he was looking for. Carnegie didn't offer money. He didn't offer easy solutions. He only offered an opportunity, a chance, and Hill accepted. Because he knew that this was the chance of a life. So it began. Hill traveled the country. He interviewed presidents. He spoke with inventors. He talked to entrepreneurs. He spent time with leaders who had transformed their lives so radically that it seemed impossible. And in every conversation, in every interview, in every story he heard, he searched for a pattern. He looked for that one thing they all had in common. He searched for the key. But at first, he found nothing. Or rather, he found many different things. Each person had a different story. Each had a different path. Each had different circumstances. So how could there be a pattern? How could there be one thing they all shared? But Hill was persistent. He kept going. You interviewed more people. You heard more stories. And after years, after talking to hundreds of successful people, after filling entire notebooks with notes, after analyzing every detail, something began to emerge. Something subtle. Something he had almost missed. Something that no one was talking about explicitly. Something that was present in all the stories, but that no one recognized as important. And when Hill finally saw it, when he put all the pieces together, he realized he had discovered something truly extraordinary. Imagine you're in a room with 500 millionaires, 500 people who started from nothing and built empires, 500 extraordinary success stories. You might think that each of them would have a different answer to the question, what's the secret? What's the thing that made you prosper? But when you listen to all the stories, when you really pay attention, when you go beyond the words, look for the real pattern, you start to notice something. You start to see that there's something they all mention, not explicitly, not as the main thing, but it's there, always, in every story, like an invisible thread connecting them all. Hill discovered that these millionaires were no different from you in terms of raw intelligence. Some of them had no formal education. Some of them started in poor families. Some of them faced obstacles that seemed insurmountable. But they all had one thing in common. They all had a practice, a ritual, something they did consistently, something they did every night. And when Hill began to ask specifically about it, when he began to investigate exactly what they did at that moment before going to sleep, the answers began to emerge. They began to align. They began to reveal an extraordinary pattern. One of these millionaires was Thomas Edison, the inventor of the electric light bulb. Edison had a peculiar habit. Every night, before going to sleep, he spent time visualizing his projects. He would close his eyes and see every detail perfectly. He saw the components. He saw how they worked. He saw the final result. And he did this with an intensity, with clarity, with an emotion that was almost tangible. Another millionaire, Henry Ford, had a similar practice. He visualized his cars. He saw every line. He saw every movement. He saw people driving his cars. He saw the future he was creating. And he did this in that minute before going to sleep, in that special state where the mind is between wakefulness and... But here's the interesting thing. Here's the twist that Hill discovered. These men didn't just visualize. They didn't just imagine. They did something much more specific. They emotionally experienced what they were visualizing. Edison didn't just see the light bulb working. He felt the satisfaction of having created something that would change the world. He felt the joy of seeing people using his invention. He felt the accomplishment of having achieved his goal. Ford didn't just see his cars being driven. He felt the pride of having created something that would make people's lives better. He felt the thrill of changing society. He felt as if he had already achieved his goal. And here's the point Hill understood. Here's the secret that changed everything. When you visualize with emotion, when you feel what you're imagining as if it's already happening, you're doing something extraordinary. You're sending a message to your subconscious. You're telling your body, your mind, your nervous system, this is real, this is true, this has already happened. And your subconscious believes it. Because for your subconscious, the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real experience is practically none. Think of a time in your life when you had a nightmare, a truly terrifying nightmare. You woke up with your heart racing, sweating all over, real fear. Your body was responding as if but it wasn't. It was just your imagination. It's just a dream. But your body didn't know that. Your subconscious didn't know that. To your nervous system, it was as real as anything that actually happened. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine visualizing something positive with the same intensity. Imagine feeling the joy, the satisfaction, the fulfillment with the same force that you felt the fear in that nightmare. What do you think would happen? Your body would respond the same way. Your subconscious would believe it. Your nervous system would reprogram itself. Hill saw this happen repeatedly. He saw men who started as laborers, who had no education, no connections, nothing but one piece of knowledge, the knowledge of how to use that minute before sleep. And these men transformed their lives. They started businesses, built empires. They achieved extraordinary wealth, not because they were lucky, not because they had special opportunities, but because every night in that minute before sleep, they were reprogramming their subconscious. They were planting seeds. They were creating mental patterns. They were preparing their bodies and minds to act differently than But Hill also saw the opposite. He saw people who had incredible opportunities, who were educated, who had powerful connections, who had everything in their favor, but who failed. And when he investigated why they failed, when he asked what they were doing in that minute before going to sleep, the answer was always the same. They were thinking about failure. They were visualizing problems. They were feeling fear. They were planting the worst possible seeds in their subconscious. And while they slept, their subconscious worked all night to confirm those beliefs, to create that future they were imagining, to bring that failure into their lives. One specific example Hill documented was of a man who had inherited a successful business, had money, had resources. He had everything he needed to thrive. But every night, before going to sleep, he thought about failure. He thought about how the business could fail. He thought about all the things that could go wrong. And within a few years, the business did fail. Not because external circumstances changed drastically, but because he had reprogrammed his subconscious for failure. He had planted the wrong seeds, and he reaped what he sowed. On the other hand, Hill met a man who started completely from scratch. No money, no formal education, no connections. But every night, before going to sleep, he visualized his future with clarity and emotion. He saw himself as a successful man. He saw his business thriving. He saw people buying his products. He saw himself achieving his goals. He felt it. He felt the joy. He felt the satisfaction. He felt the fulfillment. And within a few years, what he was visualizing began to become reality. Not because he was lucky, but because his subconscious had been reprogrammed. Because his body and mind had been prepared to act differently. Because he had planted the right seeds. And here's the point Hill wanted everyone to understand. Here is the truth he discovered. The difference between those who thrive and those who fail is not intelligence. It's not talent. It's not opportunity. It is not education. The difference is one simple thing, but profoundly transformative. Control over that minute before. The ability to deliberately, consciously program your own subconscious. The ability to plant the right seed. The ability to visualize your future with clarity and emotion. The ability to feel as if you have already achieved your goals. Hill documented story after story, hundreds of them, thousands of them, all pointing to the same truth, all revealing the same pattern, all confirming that that minute before sleep was truly the portal between the present and it was truly the key that unlocked the door to extraordinary success. And when Hill finally shared his findings with the world, when he published his books, when he began teaching this principle, people began to transform they began to apply this practice. They began to use that minute before sleep deliberately, and their results began to change. Their futures began to transform. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. Here's the reason why this knowledge is. Here's the reason why most people never discover this on their own. Because it's too simple. It's so simple that people don't believe. They think there must be something more complicated, something more difficult, something that requires more effort. They think it can't just be visualizing and feeling emotion. There must be something more. But there isn't. It really is that simple. And that's exactly why it works. Because you don't need special education. You don't need money. You don't need connections. You just need a minute before bed. And the willingness to use that minute deliberately. Hill knew this. He knew that when he shared this truth, some people would believe it and transform their lives, and other people would dismiss it as too simple, too easy, too good to be true. But he shared it anyway, because he knew that for those who truly understood, for those who truly applied it, for those who truly used that minute before sleep deliberately, the result would be extraordinary. And that's exactly what happened. Thousands of people applied this principle, and their lives were transformed. You are about to discover how to do exactly that. You are about to learn the specific method Hill recommended. You're about to understand exactly how to use that minute before sleep to reprogram your subconscious and create the future you truly desire. But before that, you need to understand something very important. You need to understand how your brain truly works in that special state. You need to understand the science behind the power of that minute. Because when you understand, when you truly comprehend, you will never waste that moment again. There is a state of consciousness that you experience every day, but that you have probably never named, never recognized as something special, never understood as being the most important moment of your life. Scientists call this the hypnagogic state. It is that specific place, that unique temporal space, when you are between wakefulness and sleep. It is not complete wakefulness, not complete sleep. It is something in between, a liminal state. A state where the normal rules of reality seem to dissolve. A state where the impossible becomes possible. A state where you have access to parts of yourself that are normally blocked, locked, inaccessible. When you're in this state, something extraordinary happens. Your brainwaves change. They literally change. During the day, when you're awake and alert, your brain operates primarily on beta waves, fast waves, waves that allow you to process information, make decisions, interact with the world. But when you begin to relax, when you begin to approach sleep, your brainwaves begin to slow down. They begin to shift to alpha waves, slower waves, deeper waves, waves that are associated with creativity, intuition, deep relaxation. And as you get even closer to sleep, your brainwaves slow down even further, entering theta waves, very slow waves, very deep waves, waves that are associated with the dream state, with deep meditation, with accessing the unconscious. But here's the thing most people don't understand. Here's the secret Hill discovered. In that specific minute before sleep, when you're in that hypnagogic state, when your brainwaves are at that perfect point between alpha and theta, something unique happens. The barrier between your conscious mind and your unconscious is extraordinarily thin. It almost disappears completely. And at that moment, everything you think, everything you visualize, everything you feel has direct access to you. It has access that it doesn't have. It has access that is practically irresistible. Have you ever stopped to think about what this really means? Have you fully grasped implications? During the day, when you're awake, your conscious mind is in control. Your ego is in command. Your limiting beliefs are there, filtering everything you think. Your skepticism is questioning everything. Your rational logic is telling you what is possible. But in that minute before sleep, when you're in that hypnagogic state, all of that disappears. Or rather, it becomes much less influential. And it's at that moment that you gain access to a power you didn't even know. Think about how you learn during the day. You read something. You process it with your conscious mind. You analyze it, question it, compare it to what you already know. You decide whether to believe it or not. Slow process that requires effort. But in that minute before sleep, when you're in that hypnagogic state, it's completely different. At that moment, you can simply accept something as truth. You can simply believe it. You can simply program your subconscious without resistance, without questioning, without analysis. It's as if you had direct access to your own mental database, as if you could directly edit the files of your subconscious. But there's more. There's something that makes it even more powerful. In that hypnagogic state, your mind is not only more open to new information, your mind is also in a state where it is extremely sensitive to the emotion you feel at that moment is amplified, intensified. It's as if you have a much louder sound volume. And when you combine that with visualization, when you combine the mental image with the intense emotion, something extraordinary happens. You create an experience that is so vivid, so real, so tangible, that your subconscious cannot distinguish between what you are imagining and what actually happened. You understand what this is? You truly grasp the magnitude of it? Your subconscious cannot distinguish between reality and vivid imagination. This is not theory. This is scientific fact. This has been proven repeatedly in neuroscience labs. When you visualize something with clarity and emotion, your brain activates the same neural circuits it would if you were actually experiencing it. Your body releases the same neurotransmitters. Your nervous system responds in the same way. Your subconscious, your body, your nervous system. It is as real as anything that actually. Now imagine what this means. Imagine you are in that minute before sleep. Imagine you are in that perfect hypnagogic state. Imagine you visualize yourself achieving your goal. Imagine you feel the emotion of that. You feel the joy. You feel the satisfaction. You feel the accomplishment. At that moment, your subconscious is receiving a very message that says, you have already achieved this. You already are this. You have already done this. And your subconscious believes. Because for your subconscious, you truly experienced it. You truly felt it. You truly lived it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Here's the part that Hill understood. That changed everything. When your subconscious believes you've already achieved something, when your subconscious is convinced that you already are something, it starts working to bring that into your life. It starts looking for opportunities that are aligned with that belief. It starts noticing things you've never noticed before. It starts creating connections you've never made before. It starts guiding your behavior in ways you don't even realize, but that are completely aligned with that goal you visualize. Think about how this works in practice. Let's say you visualize yourself as a successful person. You feel the emotion of that success. Your subconscious believes you are already a successful person. Now, the next day, when you're in a meeting, someone mentions an opportunity, you'll notice that opportunity. You'll recognize it as relevant to you. You'll feel confident enough to pursue it because your subconscious already believes you are someone who deserves success, someone who is capable of success, someone who achieves success. But if you hadn't done that visualization, hadn't reprogrammed your subconscious, you probably would have ignored that opportunity. You would have thought it wasn't free. You would have let it pass. And that's the difference. That's why some people seem to be lucky and others aren't. Not luck. It's that some people are reprogramming their subconscious every night and others are doing the opposite. Hill discovered something even deeper. He found that the hypnagogic state isn't just a state where you're more open to new beliefs. It's also a state where you're more connected to something he called infinite intelligence. Call it intuition. You could call it inner wisdom. You could call it a connection to something greater than yourself. But in that state, when your defenses are down, when your ego is quiet, when you're vulnerable and open, you have access to a kind of knowledge you can't access during the day. Have you ever had an intuition? That feeling that something was right or wrong without knowing exactly why. That inner voice that knew something your conscious mind hadn't yet discovered. That knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere. That's what Hill was talking about. That's what you access in that hypnagogic state. And when you're in that state, when open and receptive, you can ask questions, you can ask for guidance, search for answers. And often, those answers come. Not immediately. But while you sleep, while your unconscious is working, those answers begin to appear. They begin to reveal themselves. They begin to become clear. But here's the point Hill wanted everyone to understand. Here's the truth he discovered. In that hypnagogic state, you're not just receiving information, you're also creating your future. You're creating your reality. Because what you visualize, what you believe, what you feel in that moment will become the foundation upon which your unconscious will work. It will become the blueprint that your unconscious will follow. It will become the pattern that your unconscious will try to manifest in your. So think about it. Really think about it. If you're in that hypnagogic state every night, if you're in that state where your mind is open, where your mind is receptive, mind is creative, where your mind is connected to something greater, and you're filling that state with thoughts of failure, images of problems, with emotions of fear and doubt, what do you think will happen? Your subconscious will work all night to bring that into. Your subconscious will look for evidence of failure. Your subconscious will create patterns of behavior that sabotage your success. Your subconscious will guide you toward that negative future you were visualizing. But if you do the opposite, if you use that hypnagogic state to visualize success, to feel joy, to believe in possibility, connect with that infinite intelligence and ask for guidance, then your subconscious will work to bring that into your subconscious will look for opportunities. Your subconscious will create behavioral patterns that promote your success. Your subconscious will guide you toward that positive future you were visualizing. And here's what makes this so extraordinary. What makes it so transformative? You don't need to do anything special during the day. You don't need to work harder. You don't need to do more things. You just need to use that minute before sleep deliberately. Just 1 minute every day. And your subconscious does the rest. Your subconscious works while you sleep. Your subconscious creates the changes. Your subconscious guides you toward goal. While you sleep, while you rest, while you relax, your subconscious is working to transform your life. But there's something Hill discovered that makes this even more important. Makes it even more urgent. He discovered that most people are doing the exact opposite. Most people are using that hypnagogic state to program their own failure. They're using that minute before sleep to plant seeds of negativity. They're using that sacred moment to create a future they don't. And they're doing it unconsciously, without realizing, without understanding what. But the result is the same. The result is that your unconscious is working you. It's working to bring that negative future into your life, sabotaging you, creating barriers. It's limiting you. So now you understand. Now you truly understand why that minute before sleep is so important. Now you understand why Hill warned about this with such urgency. Now you understand that you are not just sleeping. You are creating your future. You are programming your destiny. You are using the most extraordinary power you possess. And the question now is, will you use that power deliberately? Will you take control of that minute? Will you begin to program your subconscious for success? Or will you continue doing what most people do, wasting that moment, sabotaging your own future, creating a destiny you don't want? The answer to that question will determine everything. It will determine your future. It will determine who you become. It will determine what kind of life you live. And the answer begins in that minute before. There's a story Hill never forgot. A story he told repeatedly because it perfectly encapsulated the difference between those who prosper and those who fail. It was the story of two men who started out in virtually identical circumstances. Same age, same city, same profession, same education, same financial resources, same opportunities. Everything was the same. Absolutely everything. But 20 years later, their lives were completely different. One of them had become extremely successful. He had built a thriving business. He had wealth. He had influence. He had achieved his dreams. The other had remained in mediocrity. He had an ordinary job. He had financial difficulties. He had frustration. He had regret. And when Hill investigated what had caused this radical difference, when he asked them both what they did differently, the answer was revealing. The successful man had a specific ritual he performed every night. When he lay in bed, he spent 15 minutes visualizing his future, closed his eyes, and saw himself as a successful man. He saw his business running perfectly. He saw his satisfied customers. He saw himself earning the amount of money he desired. And most importantly, he felt it. He felt the joy. He felt the satisfaction. He felt the accomplishment. He felt as if he had already achieved that goal. He did this consistently, every night for years. While he slept, his subconscious worked. Next day, he woke up with clarity, confidence, with intuition with opportunities that seemed to appear out of nowhere, with connections that helped him move forward, with ideas that guided him toward a goal. The other man, the one who remained mediocre, had a completely different ritual. When he lay in bed, he thought about his problems. He thought about how difficult business was. He thought about how bad the economy was. He thought about how strong the competition. He thought about all the reasons why he couldn't succeed. He thought about failure, and he felt it. He felt the anxiety. He felt the fear. He felt the doubt. He felt as if failure was inevitable. He did this consistently, every night, years. While he slept, his subconscious worked. And the next day, he woke up lacking clarity, insecure, with intuition telling him not to try, with opportunities he didn't see, with connections he didn't make, with ideas that didn't come. His subconscious was working to bring that negative future into his. Hill was fascinated by this story because it was so clear, so obvious, so revealing. The only difference between these two men was what they did in that minute before everything else was identical. But that minute had created two completely different futures. It had created two completely different lives. And when Hill began to investigate more deeply, when he began to look for other examples, he discovered that this story repeated itself again and again. It was as if there were two groups of people. One group that was reprogramming their subconscious success, and another group that reprogramming their subconscious failure. And the difference between them was simply what they did in that minute before sleep. But Hill discovered something even more interesting. He discovered that the difference wasn't just between success and failure. The difference was much more nuanced than that. There were people who were successful but not happy. People who had achieved their financial goals but felt empty. People who had wealth but lacked peace. And when Hill investigated what these people did in that minute before sleep, he discovered that they were visualizing only money, only wealth, only material success. They weren't visualizing happiness. They weren't visualizing meaning. They weren't visualizing purpose. They weren't visualizing inner peace. And the result was that they achieved material success, but lost everything else. They lost their health. They lost their relationships. They lost their peace of mind. On the other hand, Hill found people who didn't have extraordinary material wealth, but who were incredibly happy. People who had meaningful relationships. People who had purpose. People who had peace. And when he investigated what these people did in that minute before sleep, he discovered that they were visualizing a complete life. They were visualizing not only material success, but also loving relationships. They were visualizing health. They were visualizing purpose. They were visualizing contribution. They were visualizing a life that was balanced and meaningful. This led Hill to a very important understanding, an understanding that changed the way he taught this principle. He understood that minute before sleep wasn't just about programming your subconscious for material success. It was about programming your subconscious for the life you truly desire. It was about being very specific about, because your subconscious will work to bring you what you visualize. If you visualize only money, your subconscious will bring you money, nothing else. If you visualize a complete life, your subconscious will work to bring you a complete. Hill documented a particularly fascinating case. It was the case of a man who had started as a salesman, an ordinary salesman, no higher education, no powerful connections, no apparent advantages. But this man had understood the power of that minute before sleep. And every night, he visualized himself as the best salesman in the company. He visualized himself achieving the highest sales. He visualized himself being recognized and awarded. He felt it. He felt the satisfaction. He felt the pride, accomplishments. He felt the joy of recognition. And within a year, he had truly become the best salesman in the company. Within 2 years, he had been promoted. Within 5 years, he was a manager. Within 10 years, he was a director. Within 20 years, he was president of the company. Here's the interesting thing. Here's the detail that Hill always emphasized. This man hadn't worked harder than the other salesmen. He hadn't done anything extraordinary during the day. He had basically done the same work that everyone else did. But because his subconscious had been reprogrammed, because he believed he was the best salesman, because he felt like the best salesman, he started acting like the best salesman. He started noticing things that others didn't notice. He started making connections that others didn't make. He started making decisions that others. And the result was that he actually became the best salesman, not because he had more talent, but because his subconscious was working to bring that reality into his life. Hill also documented the opposite case. The case of a man who had started with extraordinary advantages. He had a first-class education. He had powerful connections. He had an inheritance. He had everything you could wish for. But every night before going to sleep, he thought about failure. He thought about how he wasn't good enough. He thought about how he didn't deserve success. He thought about how he would probably fail. He felt it. He felt the insecurity. He felt the inadequacy. He felt the fear. And within a few years, despite all his advantages, despite all the opportunities he had failed. He had lost his inheritance. He had lost his opportunities. He had lost his status because his unconscious had been programmed for failure. The unconscious had worked all night to bring that failure into his life. These cases revealed something profound. They revealed that success or failure was not determined by external circumstances. It was not determined by education or connections or inheritance. It was determined by what you believed about yourself. It was determined by what you programmed into your subconscious. It was determined by what you visualized in that minute before sleep. And that was a liberating truth, because it meant you weren't trapped by your circumstance. It meant you could change your future. It meant you had the power in your hands. You had the power to reprogram your subconscious. You had the power to visualize a future. You had the power to create the life you desired. But Hill discovered there was a crucial detail, a detail that separated those who truly transformed their lives from those who tried but failed. That detail was consistency. It was discipline. It was the willingness to do that practice just once. It's when you remember it every night, consistently. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Hill discovered that those who transformed their lives were those who had made that minute before sleep a sacred ritual, a ritual that was non-negotiable, a ritual that was as important as eating or breathing, a ritual that was performed regardless of how they felt, regardless of how the day was going, regardless of anything else. Because here's the thing most people don't understand. Here's the secret Hill wanted everyone. Your subconscious isn't interested in your momentary. Your subconscious isn't interested in your excuses. Your subconscious isn't interested in why you didn't practice today. Your subconscious is only interested in what you program it into, what you visualize, what you believe. And if you don't program anything, if you leave that minute to chance, your subconscious will program itself with the news, with the problems you face, fears you have, with the negativity in the air. Subconscious will program itself with failure by default. Hill saw people who began the practice with enthusiasm. They visualized every night for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month. and they were starting to see results. They were beginning to notice changes. They were beginning to experience opportunities. They were beginning to have insights, believe it was working. But then, when the novelty wore off, when the practice became routine, when the initial enthusiasm was gone, these people started skipping nights. They started practicing superficially. They started to let it go. The result was that the results stopped. The changes stopped. The opportunities stopped appearing, because their subconscious had stopped receiving the programming. But Hill also saw people who understood the importance of consistency, who understood that that minute before sleep was sacred, who understood that they needed to do it every night, regardless of how they felt. And these people transformed their lives. They transformed them completely, because their subconscious was receiving consistent programming. It was receiving a clear message. It was being reprogrammed day after day, night after night. And the result was that their future began to change. It began to transform. It began to align with what they were visualizing. So now you understand. Now you truly understand the difference between those who prosper and those who fail. It's not intelligence, it's not talent, it's not education, it's not opportunity, it's not inheritance. The difference is simple. It's what you do in that minute before sleep. It's whether you're programming your subconscious success or failure. It's whether you're being consistent with that practice, leaving it to chance. Whether you understand that that minute is sacred and needs to be protected, or whether you're wasting that precious moment. And the question now is, which of the two groups will you belong to? Will you be the one who prospers, or the one who fails? Will you be the one who transforms your life, or the one who remains stuck? The answer begins in that minute before sleep. The answer begins with a decision that you will take control of that moment, a decision that you will be consistent, a decision that you will program your subconscious for the future you truly desire. And that decision will change everything. Hill was very specific about how to do this, very precise, very deliberate. He didn't just recommend vague, positive thinking. It wasn't about repeating generic affirmations while you're in bed, hoping something magical will happen. It wasn't about simply wishing things would work out. No, it was much more powerful than that. It was much more structured than that. A method, process, a practice that had been tested and proven by hundreds of successful people. Now you're about to learn exactly how to do it. You're about to receive the method Hill recommended. The method that transformed lives. The method you can start using today. The first step was to create a crystal clear mental image of your goal. Not a vague image, not a generic image, a specific image, detailed, clear. You need to know exactly what you want. You need to be able to describe it precisely. If you want financial success, you need to know how much money, just any money, a specific amount. If you want a relationship, you need to know what kind of person, what kind of relationship. If you want a career, you need to know which career, what position, what level of responsibility. You need to be specific, because your subconscious works with specificity. Your subconscious cannot work with abstractions. Your subconscious works with clear images, with specific details, with well-defined goals. Hill recommended that you spend time during the day thinking about it, writing about it, visualizing it, making that image clearer and clearer, more and more detailed, more and more real in your mind. Because when you get to that minute before sleep, when you get to that hypnagogic state, you'll have a very clear image to work with. You won't be looking for that image. It will already be there, ready, waiting, and you'll be able to simply enter that state and activate that image. The second step was to close your eyes completely. Relax your body completely. All the tension out. Let all your muscles go limp. Let your mind be quiet. Let the day disappear. Let all thoughts about work, about problems, worries disappear. You need to be in a state of deep relaxation, because it is in that state that you can access that hypnagogic state. It is in that state that the barrier between conscious and unconscious becomes thin. It is in that state that you have access to real power. Then, when you are completely relaxed, when you're in that perfect state, you begin to visualize. But it's not just visualizing, it's much more than that. You're not just seeing with the mind's eye. You're using all your senses. You're seeing the color. You're feeling the texture. You're hearing the sounds. You're smelling the aroma. You're feeling the temperature. You're creating a multi-sensory experience. An experience that is so vivid, so real, so tangible, that your subconscious can't distinguish between what you're imagining and what's actually happening. Bill gave specific examples. If you want a new car, you don't just visualize the car. You sit inside the car. You feel the leather of the seat under your hand. You feel the steering wheel. You hear the sound of the engine. You feel the car moving. You see the road passing by. You feel the wind. You experience it. You live it. If you want a romantic relationship, you don't just visualize the person. You are with that person. You feel the embrace. You hear the voice. You see the smile. You experience the intimacy. You live it. If you want success in your career, you don't just visualize success. You are in the office. You feel the satisfaction of a job well done. You hear the words of recognition. You see the result of your work. You experience it. You live it. But here's the crucial point. Here's the point Hill always emphasized: feeling it. You're feeling the emotion of that future as if it were already happening now. Feeling the joy. You're feeling the satisfaction. You're feeling the accomplishment. Feeling the gratitude. Feeling as if you've already achieved that goal. Because it's emotion that fuels conscious. Emotion that makes your brain truly believe. It's emotion that creates the neural changes that need to happen. He'll explain that most people make a mistake at this point. They visualize, but they don't feel. They create the image, don't create the emotion. And the result is that their unconscious doesn't believe. Their unconscious feels it's just imagined, just fantasy, it's just a dream. But when you add the emotion, when you really feel it, when you experience it emotionally, your unconscious believes it. Your unconscious says, this is real, true. This has already happened. And it is at that moment the magic begins. Because when your subconscious believes you've already achieved something, when your subconscious is convinced that you already are something, it starts working to bring that into you. It starts looking for opportunities. It starts noticing things you've never noticed before. It starts creating connections you've never made before. It starts guiding your behavior in ways you don't even realize, that are completely aligned with your subconscious. Starts working for you instead of working against you. Hill recommended that you spend between 10 and 20 minutes in that state. 10 to 20 minutes visualizing with clarity and emotion. 10 to 20 minutes experiencing that future. 10 to 20 minutes letting your subconscious absorb that message. And then when you felt ready, when you felt you had done enough, you simply let that image go. You let your body relax completely, and you let sleep come. You let your subconscious continue the work while you slept. But Hill also recommended something very important. He recommended that you do this with gratitude, that you end that practice by saying thank you. Thank you for that future you visualized. Thank you as if you had already received it. Thank you as if you had already achieved it. Because gratitude is a very powerful emotion. Gratitude opens doors. Gratitude creates receptivity. Gratitude aligns you what you desire. And when you end your practice with gratitude, you're sending a very clear message to your subconscious. You're saying, I believe this has already happened. I believe this is already mine. I'm grateful for it. Hill documented a very interesting case of a man who had applied this method very rigorously. This man had a specific goal. He wanted to earn a specific amount of money in a specific period. He had calculated exactly how much he needed to earn per month to reach his annual goal. Every night, before going to sleep, he visualized money. He saw the money in his hand. He felt the paper of the bills. He saw the numbers in his bank account. He felt the satisfaction of having that money. He felt gratitude for that. And he did this consistently, every night, for months. And here's the surprising thing. Here's the twist that Hill always highlighted. This man hadn't done anything extraordinary during the day. He had continued his normal work. He had continued his normal routine. But because his subconscious had been reprogrammed, because he believed he had that money, because he felt as if he had already achieved his goal, he began to notice opportunities. He began to make connections. He began to make decisions that led him toward that goal. And within a year, he had achieved exactly the amount of, not approximately, exactly. It was as if his subconscious had a map that guided him directly toward that goal. But there's more. There's something that makes it even more extraordinary. Hill discovered that when you visualize clarity and emotion, and you program your subconscious consistently, you don't just achieve your goal. You achieve it in ways you never imagined. You achieve it through opportunities you never anticipated. You achieve it through connections you never expected. You achieve it in ways that seem like miracles. They seem like coincidence. It's luck, but it's not luck. It's your subconscious work, your subconscious creating the path. It's your subconscious guiding you. Hill also recommended that you not become obsessed with the how. Don't keep trying to figure out how you are going to achieve your goal, because your unconscious knows how. Your unconscious has access to information that your unconscious can make connections that your conscious mind. Your job is simply to visualize the result. Your job is simply to believe. Your job is simply to feel as if you have already achieved it. And let your unconscious figure out the how. Let your unconscious create the path. Let your unconscious guide you. But Hill also warned about something very important. He warned that you shouldn't just visualize once and then expect everything to change. It didn't work that way. You needed to do it consistently, every night, for weeks, months, for years if necessary. Because your subconscious doesn't change with a single exposure. Your subconscious changes with repetition, with consistency, reinforcement. You needed to be reprogramming your subconscious night after night, planting the same seed repeatedly until that seed became a belief that your body and mind completely believed. And here's the point Hill wanted everyone to understand. Here's the secret he kept. When you do this, when you really do this, when you visualize clearly and emotionally every night, when you program your subconscious consistently, something changes. You change. Your vibration changes. Your energy changes. Presence changes. And the people around you start to notice. They start responding to you differently. They start offering help. They start opening doors. They start creating opportunities because you are emitting a different frequency. You are vibrating at a different frequency. And the universe responds to that frequency. But there's one thing Hill discovered that was even more important than all of that. He discovered that when you visualize with clarity and emotion, when you program your subconscious for success, you don't just change your external life, you change your internal life. You change who you are. You change your self-confidence, change your self-esteem, change your self-image. Begin to see yourself as someone who deserves success, someone who is capable of success, someone who achieves success. When you see yourself that way, when you truly believe it, when you truly feel it, you begin to act that way. You begin to make different decisions. You begin to behave differently. You begin to create a different future. And that's exactly what Hill wanted That's exactly what he dedicated his life sharing. That you have the power, have the control, that you can create your future and program your subconscious, that you can transform your life. It all starts in that minute before sleep. It all starts with a decision that you will take control of that moment, a decision that you will visualize with clarity and emotion, a decision that you will program your subconscious for the future you truly desire. When you make that decision, when you truly make it, everything changes. Your future changes, your life changes, you change. And that's why Hill warned about this with such urgency, because he knew it was real. He knew it worked. And he knew that if you truly applied this method, if you truly did it consistently, your life would be transformed, completely transformed. And now you're about to discover exactly how to put this into practice. You're about to learn how to begin. You are about to receive the ultimate secret that will change everything. You've come this far. You've heard it all. You've grasped the secret. You know now that that minute before sleep is not an insignificant. You know it's the portal between your present and your future. You know it's where the real decisions are made. You know it's where you can reprogram your subconscious. You know it's where you can create the future you desire. Now comes the most important part. Now comes the part that separates those who transform their lives from those who only hear about transformation. Now comes the action. Now comes the decision. Now comes the moment when you need to choose. You can close this video and forget everything you heard and go back to your life as it were. You can continue wasting that minute before sleep and continue letting your subconscious be programmed by chance. You can continue creating a future you don't want. It's an option. It's a valid option, but it's not the option that will change your life, not the option that will transform you, not the option that will create the extraordinary future you deserve. Or you can make a different choice. You can decide that tonight when you lie in bed, things will be different. You can decide that you will take control of that minute. You can decide that you will visualize with clarity and emotion. You can decide that you will program your subconscious fast. You can decide that you will begin to create the future you truly desire. That decision will change everything. That decision is the first step. That is the moment that matters. So here's what you need to do. Here's the practical plan. Here's how you begin. First, you need to be very clear about what's not enough to just want success. You need to know what kind of success. You need to know how much money. You need to know what career. You need to know what kind of relationship. You need to be specific as possible. Spend time today thinking about it, writing about it, making that vision clearer and clearer. When you get to that minute before sleep, you'll have a crystal clear picture to work with. Second, you need to create a ritual that is sacred, a ritual that you will do every night, not just when you remember, not just when you have time, every night. You will lie down in bed. You will turn off the light. You will relax completely. You will close your eyes and you will visualize. You will visualize with all your senses. You will see the color. You will feel the texture. You will hear the sounds. Feel the emotion. You will live that future. You will do this for 10 to 20 minutes and then you will sleep calm. You will let your subconscious continue the work. Third, you need to be consistent. You need to do this every night, for weeks, for months, for years if necessary. Because your subconscious doesn't change with a single exposure. Subconscious changes with repetition, with consistency, with reinforcement. You are planting a seed. And that seed needs to be watered every day. It needs to receive light every day. It needs to be cared for every day until it grows, until it becomes a strong plant, until it bears fruit. Fourth, you need to trust the process. You need to believe it's working even when you don't see immediate results. Because the work is happening. Your subconscious is working. Your brain is reprogramming it. Your neural connections are changing. Your body is preparing. And at some point you can't predict. The results will appear. The opportunities will appear. The connections will appear. The future you envisioned will begin to manifest. But you need to trust. You need to believe. You need to have faith. Fifth, you need to be attentive during the day. You need to be observing. Because your subconscious will begin to guide you. It will begin to create opportunities, begin to put people in your path. It will begin to open doors. But you need to be attentive. You need to be observing. You need to be willing to act when those opportunities appear. Because the universe will offer. You need to be ready to receive. You need to be ready to act. And here's the most important thing. Here's the point Hill always emphasized. Not just creating a better future. You're becoming a better person. You're changing who you are. You're developing confidence. You're developing faith. You're developing the ability to visualize. You're developing the ability to believe, developing the ability to create. These skills will stay with you for the rest. These skills will transform not only this goal, but all future goals. These skills will completely transform. Imagine with me. Imagine you do this. Imagine you start tonight. Imagine you visualize it with clarity and emotion. Imagine you do it consistently. Imagine you trust the process. Imagine you are attentive to opportunities. Imagine you act when they appear. Imagine you continue doing this week after week, month after month. Imagine that in 6 months you begin to notice changes. Small changes at first, but real changes, tangible changes. Imagine that in 1 year you have significant results. Imagine that in 2 years your life is completely different. Imagine that in 5 years you are a completely different person, achieved your goals, that you have created the future you desired, that you have become the person you always wanted to be. This is not fantasy. This is not a dream. This is possible. This is real. This is what happens when you apply this principle. This is what happens when you take control of that minute before sleep. This is what happens when you reprogram your subconscious. This is what Hill discovered. This is what he shared. This is what thousands of people have experienced, and now you can experience it too. But there's one thing you need to understand. There's one thing that's crucial. You can't just hear this. You can't just agree with this. You can't just think it's a good idea. You need to do it. You need to act. You need to begin tonight. When you lie in bed, you're going to do things differently. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to relax. You're going to visualize. You're going to feel. You're going to program your subconscious, and you're going to begin creating your extraordinary future. Because the truth is, you have the power. You've always had the power. You just hadn't understood it. But now you understand. Now you know. Now you have no excuse. Now you can't say you didn't know. Now you have the responsibility to transform your life. And that responsibility is a gift. It's an extraordinary gift because it means you're not trapped. It means you're not limited. It means you can create the future you want. It means you can be who you want to be. It means you can live the life you deserve. So do it. Start today. Tonight. When you lie in bed, do something different. Visualize clearly. Feel with emotion. Believe with faith. Program your subconscious. And let your future be created. Let your life be transformed. Let you be transformed because you deserve it. You deserve success. You deserve happiness. You deserve an extraordinary life. And it all begins in that minute before sleep. If this video touched you, if you felt that this message was exactly what you needed to hear right now, leave your comment below. Share with me what future you will begin to visualize from. What dream will you begin to reprogram in your subconscious? You can comment anonymously if you prefer. Share it just with yourself and me, but share it. Because when you put that intention into words, when you express it, you make it real, you make it possible, you make it creatable. Subscribe to the channel to receive more revelations about the secrets of success that masters like Napoleon Hill have left for us. Because there is so much more to learn. There is so much more to discover. There is so much more to transform. And I want to be with you on this journey. I want to share these secrets with you. I want to help you transform your life. So subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos, so every message, so you have access to every revelation. Click like. Click like so that more people can discover this extraordinary power that exists within them. Because there are many people who are wasting that minute before sleep. There are many people who are sabotaging their own future. There are many people who don't know that they can change, that they can transform, that they can create. When you click like, when you share this video, you are helping these people. You are giving them the opportunity to discover this secret. You are giving them the chance to transform their lives. You are being an instrument of change. So do it. Comment, subscribe, click like, and begin your journey of transformation. Start tonight. When you lie in bed, do something different. Visualize your future. Feel the emotion. Believe in the possibility. Program your subconscious and let the magic happen. Let your future be created. Let your life be transformed because you deserve it. You deserve to live the extraordinary life you've always dreamed of. And it all begins in that minute before sleep. That sacred minute. That minute that decides everything. That minute that is yours. That minute that begins.